meeting is being recorded.
Okay, so yeah, we were just discussing the Super Bowl commercials, so we'll have to have the follow-up discussion next week, just for Melina's sake there. All right, we're gonna get in our grammar book, page 91. 91 today. Yeah. 91. Okay, so this is a little tricky, but I don't want it to overwhelm you because you guys, and I say you guys, I know I'm talking to just Jasper right now, but I'm trying to include Melina because I know she'll watch this later, but you guys know about adjectives and adverbs and those clauses. So this really isn't anything new to you, but it's a little bit of a deeper understanding of how they function. So it's not new, but it is deeper because you guys are, getting through this book, you're in high school and it is, you're ready for this. So just to keep this tucked away in the back of your mind when you're looking at how these clauses are used. All right, so that's my little introduction. Okay, right here, it says, clausal adjectives and clausal adverbs. So in this book, you've looked at the first word of a dependent clause to determine if the dependent clause functions as an adjective or an adverb. If a dependent clause begins with a www word, you remember that one, www.asia. It usually functions as an adverb, and adverb clauses can appear anywhere in a sentence. You do use a comma after, but not before an adverb clause. And then it says if a dependent clause begins with who or which, it functions as an adjective. And that kind of makes sense already because you're adding to the noun. Those questions you ask to identify an adjective is who or which one or how many, those kinds of questions. A who which clause follows a noun and describes it. And then you use commas unless it's essential. And that is if you can take out the clause, then it's non-essential. Okay, so if you can take it out, use commas. That's kind of how my little trick in my head. But if you can't take it out, like if you take it out and the sentence is not complete, then that means that the clause is essential and you don't need a comma. That's how I remember that little note there. Although words when and where, those are the www words, these two words can also begin adjective clauses. So to determine if a dependent clause that begins with when or where is an adjective clause or an adverb clause, look at its location. And you already know that the adverb modifies the verb and the adjective modifies the noun. So that's where you look for the location to determine what it's doing. So if it comes immediately after a noun and describes that noun, then it's an adjective clause. And you can test if a dependent clause that begins with when or where is an adjective clause by inserting which was or which were before the clause. Okay, so, and you've got some notes here on the side, on the margin that I'm going to go over in a second here, because I think that's going to help you when you're identifying these clauses. But here's your example of an adjective clause. It says, Frederick remained in the infirmary where he rested. And the test is, can you put which was after the noun? Okay, so you have Frederick remained in the infirmary, which was where he rested. It does make sense. You can put it there. So it says, where he rested is a dependent clause. It begins with the word where and includes a subject and a verb. So the subject is he and the verb is rested. The dependent clause follows the noun infirmary, and that's basically a hospital, like a small, like a portable or mobile hospital type thing. Follows a noun infirmary and describes it. So you can ask which infirmary, where he rested. It makes sense to say Frederick remained in the infirmary, which was where he rested. So this is an adjective clause. So it's just a little test you can do. And I'm going to show you an example of that in just a second here. Let's finish this page first. It is non-essential because without the clause, Frederick still remained in the infirmary. It requires a comma. So that's basically saying you can take it out and it still makes sense. So that's when you use a comma. Place the commas around adjective clause if it's non-essential, meaning you can take it out, it still makes sense without it. And do not use commas if the adjective clause is essential, like it doesn't make sense if you take it out. You have to have it in there. It's essential to have it in there. And it changes the meaning of the sentence. Okay. Place parentheses around the dependent clause, DC. Write V above each verb and S above each subject. You're already doing that. If the dependent clause begins with when or where, decide if it is an adjective clause or an adverb clause. If it is an adjective clause, the test, who was, were, or which was, were, works. That's your test. If it is an adverb clause, write AC above the WWW word and then follow the comma rules. So basically, you just need to remember adverb clause is the one that you're going to label with AC. If it is an adjective clause, you don't have to label it. They're just wanting you to understand it. So you're still basically only labeling the adverb clauses. Then here's your example at the bottom. The vet worked during the day, and then they inserted which was when Frederick was awake. So when you see that WWW word and you can place that before it, which was, that's indicating it's an adjective clause, so you don't have to mark that. They want you to put in which was though. And we're going to look at an example on one of your practice pages in a second. And then here, Dorinda would apologize when she felt like it. So even though we have when here, and I practiced this a little bit on my own and I said, okay, what if I put which was in there? If I said Dorinda would apologize, which was when she felt like it, it kind of makes sense, but not really, because would apologize means she hasn't apologized yet to me. So if I say which was, that indicates it did happen already. So it doesn't quite fit. Does that make sense, Jasper? Kind of. It's a little, it's kind of, we're getting deep into the weeds of grammar here. So anyway, and it is dependent on the first part of this sentence here. So you take out the comma. You can't remove that and it be an independent sentence by itself. So you don't need a comma for that reason, but it is an adverb clause. It starts with when, which is a WWW word, and then it has a subject verb inside of it. So your notes on the side here, basically are the adverb clause. These are the first words that you would find in an adverb clause. And the pattern is the WWW word plus the subject and verb. Commas come after, but not before, and you're still marking it with AC. So you'll notice some of these first words. I mean, those are the clues that where you stop. You see one of these words and you stop and you go, okay, is this adjective? Is this adverb? Is it modifying the noun? Is it modifying the verb? That's where you got to make that decision. By the way, I don't think I mentioned this down here because this is modifying day, which is a noun. And this one's modifying apologize, which is a verb. Okay, so that is another little clue to look for which one it's modifying. And then your adjective clause down here, look for the location. It describes a noun, or another word for that is modifying the noun. And then your first words are here. These are what your clue is, that it's an adjective clause. And then same rule is commas unless it's essential to the sentence, and you mark it with a WW if it begins with who or which. Any questions about that page so far, Jasper?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's kind of a lot to process, but I think, honestly, I think you're already picking up on these things naturally. We're just putting words to it. And so I'm not too worried about it because you're going to be seeing this a lot. And then I think it'll all just kind of come together. That's my hope is that all of a sudden the light will just come on. You know, I'm still waiting for my light to come on. So you're not alone. All right. And we got another clause to talk about, the that clause, which is my favorite because I find I say that word a lot. So a that clause can be an adjective clause or a noun clause. While each word in that clause has its own job, all words work together to do the job of either a noun or an adjective. In this book, most that clauses are noun clauses that function as direct objects. So the thing that you can just rest assured on is it always starts with that. Okay, so that helps. Okay. Sometimes I drive myself crazy, but anyway. To determine if a that clause functions as an adjective or a noun, look at its location. If it comes immediately after a noun and describes that noun, it's an adjective clause. You can test it if that clause is an adjective clause by replacing it with that, replacing that with which. Here's your example. The leg that was broken had to be set. So here they marked it with a parentheses, and that's how you identify it in the book. But if you can replace it with which, the leg which was broken had to be set, then that means it's an adjective clause. Okay, so that's another little test you can do. That clause follows the noun leg and describes it. Which leg that was broken. It makes sense by saying the leg which was broken had to be set. That clause is an adjective clause. Okay, Frederick knew that his leg was broken. So Frederick knew what? That his leg was broken. That clause is a noun clause that follows the action verb and functions as the direct object. So you can't replace that one with which. Frederick knew which his leg was broken. That doesn't make sense. So that's your little test. That clauses that function like nouns and that clauses that function like adjectives are essential to the sentence. So no comma for those because you can't take them out. So you have to keep no comma there. And then this is just a think about it, kind of reiterating what we've already talked about. Both adjective and adverbs add detail to a sentence. When a prepositional phrase or a dependent clause tells how, when, where, or why, the entire group does the job of an adverb. That's basically, they're just saying that's what the clause does. It acts as an adverb. When a prepositional phrase or a dependent clause comes after a noun and describes that noun, the entire word group does the job of an adjective and tells which one, what kind, how many, or whose. These two sentences contain similar words but have different meanings. The veterinarian examined Frederick in the infirmary. Examined where? In the infirmary. So in the infirmary comes after the noun. The noun is Frederick, but it does not describe Frederick. It is not an adjective. In the infirmary tells where the veteran examined Frederick. So it is an adverb. So that's, the twist to this. The veterinarian from the infirmary examined Frederick. Which veterinarian from the infirmary? From the infirmary comes after the noun veterinarian and describes it. From the infirmary tells which veterinarian examined Frederick, so it is an adjective. Okay. And then strong verb, quality, adjective, ly, adverb. This is basically explaining what we already are doing in our writing and what those dress up words, how they function, which is basically giving the reader more of an image when you're using a strong adjective, and it's describing more of an image of the action when you use an ly adverb. We already know that, so I'm not too concerned about that part. I do want to show you one thing on your practice page, though. Do you have any questions, Jasper?
No.
Okay. 93, right here. And we're not going to do the, oh, I forgot to get something. Hold on one second.
All right.
Okay. Let's see. This part, I'm not going to go through this whole page, but in the infirmary, the palace vet positioned the frog on the adjustable exam table where he treated his smallest patients after he examined Frederick, he set the broken frog leg, which dangled oddly. Interesting. Obviously, it's more than one sentence there, but when you see that word where, that's an www word. So that's an indication we need to do the test here. And they're suggesting, because you can put which was right here. So I want you to just draw a little caret there. And in parentheses, put which was. And because that makes sense, that's your little test to see if it's an adjective clause. And since you have the noun table right before it, that means it's an adjective clause. It's describing more about the table, which was where he treated his smallest patients. So I just wanted to show you how to insert that. When you find that, that's how you label the adjective clause. And it doesn't really want you to label the clause. I just know that in the answer key, they want you to put that in there. I was looking up here to see if you had an adjective clause, but you just have an adverb clause. So, okay, any questions about that?
No.
Okay, good. All right, so as always, use your book. Go back. If you're like, okay, some of these things here, like the prepositional phrases, you have now PP adjective and PP adverb right here. And so you might want to go back and check, okay, what is that again? And how do I find that? So just use your book and then do your best on it, and then go to the answer key and see how you do with that. All right, that's it for grammar. So moving on. The first thing I want you to do with your binder, we got to organize it a little bit. By the way, I read both of yours and Melina's Father Damien report, and you did an excellent job. Both of you guys did excellent. I was just so happy. I don't know if you saw my note yet this morning about that.
Oh, no.
Not yet. Okay. Both of you only used one banned word. So I caught that. I know you guys are working so hard at not using it, but you accidentally used one. But I will tell you both, I did not take off a point because I knew it was like, I could tell you were really working at not using it, but I found one on both of yours. So
I read it over again and I was like, oh, let's make that sound more fancy. But I guess I missed one of them.
just one, but Do you remember the trick I showed you on how to search for them in your Google
Oh
Doc?
yeah, I
Yeah,
forgot to
try
set
that.
up.
That'll help you because that's how I found it. I didn't even pick it up the first time I read it, but when I used that trick, I found it. So yeah, it's hard to find. All right, so basically everything for Father Damien, the original story, the checklist, anything that you have related to that can go ahead and go behind finished compositions now. We're moving on from that. So just stick it back there. And still keep your checklists and all of that. I still like to have that at the front. So it's ready for you.
Oh, wait. There.
Eventually, we're going to start using the rest of your binder with the other model charts and outlines and stuff. But for now, we'll just keep it in the front here. Okay. So you do need to get out from your source text tab. The week 8, we're moving on to a new unit now. So you're going to need week 8, this, which is page 79, and then page 81 with these pictures, and then page 83 with more pictures, page 85, and 87. So you have, that's all of week 8. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages to pull out.
81 to 87.
81 to 87, correct.
Okay.
Okay.
The week 9 one is called Ape Turkey. Seems interesting.
Yes. I think you and Melina, but especially you, Jasper, because I know you are a creative writer. You are going to love this next unit. I was excited to move on from all the, academic stuff because you get to let your creativity just go wild in this unit. So I'm excited for you. I think Melina likes to write about that stuff too. She's good at that too. I think she's got a good creative bone in her body too. So we'll see what you guys come up with this. Okay, I am going to, oops, okay, I'm on the wrong page here. We're going to start with some class notes. So go ahead and get out a clean piece of paper first. Lined piece of paper here. Go ahead and label your paper. Today's the 9th. And we're just going to call this page class notes. And then we're going to call it Unit 5. And it's called Event Description. All right, so even though we're moving on to a new unit, we're still going to have a 3-paragraph model. So that's, oops, it's trying to focus. There we go. We're going to continue with that, and that will include your 3-paragraph model of your outline as well. So, we've been doing that all along. And remember back when we did the story sequence chart, that was also a 3-paragraph model. And do you remember, what did we include in a story sequence? What was in that first paragraph? Do you remember what we were focused on for the story sequence chart?
Oh, was it characters?
Yes. Characters and setting. Yeah, that was in paragraph 1. And then what was in paragraph 2?
Was that the climax?
Not quite the climax, but that was the problem.
Plot?
Yeah, right. The problem that there was in the middle, and then, or a conflict. It was like the conflict of the problem. Yeah. And then so the last paragraph was what?
The resolution.
Resolution, climax and resolution, because it was kind of like we introduced the characters, we talked about what was happening, and then that's when it hit that climax, is right as you're transitioning from the second to the third paragraph, and then the third paragraph just resolves it. So good, you're right. So that similar type of model is what we're going to do with this one, as far as we're going to still keep it a 3-paragraph, but instead of focusing on the characters and the problem and the solution, we're going to focus on questions. Okay, so in our notes here, whoops, let me look at my notes really quick here, actually. All right, so this is going to be, I'm going to have you draw a line, not exactly in the middle of your page, but a little bit to the left here, like about there. Draw a line down, and you're still going to have the same model. And this time we're only going to focus on 4 under each Roman numeral. And we still are going to have the clincher here. And then we're going to have, go ahead and skip a line, do the same thing for number 2. And clincher. And then number 3. This is just a model, just so you can use it for your notes. And if you notice, and I'll show you in a second, that yellow page you took out also has this model, but I wanted to just walk you through it really quick. This is a little bit different than the story sequence chart, because the story sequence chart, like we just talked about, was very structured, right? It was definitely character, setting, and problem solution. This is more free-flowing, which you're going to love because there's not as many rules to how you do this. I know you're going to love it. Okay, so you're going to be describing pictures this time. We're not going to actually have any reading to do, so you can celebrate that. Woohoo! So what I'm going to have you do is just draw a box here next to number 1, draw a box next to number 2, and a box next to number 3. So instead of having like an article or a story, we're actually going to just look at pictures. There's no reference, there's no names, there's no location, or I mean, you might be able to tell from what's in the picture, but it's definitely like free flowing. You're just going to look at this picture, and that's how you're going to build your keyword outline here. We're still going to follow the same rules as we have been with 3 to 4 words, symbols, abbreviations, numbers, those are all free still. So same format on that level with this, but not so structured with the order. Okay. So another thing I want you to add here, when we knew this from this last unit, this is the topic. So go ahead and write topic next to Roman numeral 1. But instead of it being like factual, like we did with Father Damien, this is going to be more of a central fact. So go ahead and write that on each one. Topic equals central fact. And basically the central fact is what you see in these pictures. That is the central fact, is what you see in the pictures. And then you're going to think of some details as you're looking at these pictures. And I wanted to ask you, because this is a tricky question. I want to see if you can come up with an answer. How can you explain to me how you think? Like the process of thinking. How can you put that into words?
Like just in general.
Yeah, just in general. It's a tricky question, but I want to know how you would explain that. How do you think?
Well, usually when I do it, I'll like see something and then I'll start thinking about that one thing, and then it goes to something slightly similar, and then it keeps doing that until the one thing is completely different than what the first thing was.
Wow, Jasper, that's actually a really great answer. I like that. And I think I've told you this before, but you remind me a lot of my own son. And that is how he is too. He's very visual. And I can tell you're a visual person. So you automatically think of a situation or a person or scene almost like in a movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's a really good. Go ahead.
In one of my other classes, we did a little test to see which one of the like visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and digital, which one of those things we were, and I got visual, yeah, visual, and like a tiny bit auditory, but mostly visual.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I could have guessed that about you. Yeah. Yeah, because it kind of goes in line with the creative, you're accessing more of that side of your brain where you're creative and inventive and you like to imagine. And so I forgot to ask you, and maybe I did, but do you play an instrument? Or are you interested in music at all?
I like music, but I cannot play an instrument.
Okay. Yeah,
I can play the didgeridoo, but that's pretty simple.
oh, that's cool. Yeah, no, that's fun. Maybe someday you'll try it. It seems like I can imagine you do enjoy music. I'm just going to give an example with my son. He hears music differently than I do. Like he hears the details that I don't normally pick up on. I don't know if you're like that, if you hear like background sounds or themes with the sounds.
Sometimes I do.
Sometimes, yeah. You might start noticing that because that's enjoyable for my son, and he's into mixing. Like he'll I forget all the terms because I'm not into this, but he takes an original song and then he changes it, and then he does that EDM style, where you're adding different sounds and stuff, but you have the original voices, or it's pretty cool. He does that. That is his escape. That's how he I don't know, just it's like really satisfying to him. So I wonder if, and he doesn't really draw or really get into the arts on that end. And I don't know about you, do you like to draw?
Um, sort of.
Yeah.
I don't do it like really often, but sometimes
Okay.
I'll doodle.
Yeah. And that's where my daughter, she is definitely more artistic with her hands. It's interesting. So both my kids though have that side of their brain creative like that. So anyway, that was just a side note, but obviously you can't think of something that's not already in your brain. That's something to keep in mind, because you can't think of a completely if it's not already in there. It might be accessed, like you're saying, with an original thought that evolves. That's one thing, but to think of something that's not in there already, that's impossible to do. So you have to have something to begin with. And like I said, it can evolve, but you got to have a thought in there already to begin with in order to have it evolve or create. So creative thinking comes from the Latin word creo, which means from nothing, there is something. So that's how in creative writing, and then inventive, the Latin word is invenio, and that means to find or to discover, but you can't find or discover something that's not there. That's the thing. So let me ask you this. Who in your life, Jasper, is good at figuring out what you're thinking?
Hmm. I'm not really sure.
I would
I
say go ahead. Did you have a thought?
Most of the time my face is like very still, so sometimes it's hard to tell. Like,
Yeah, that's a good answer. You could probably play poker really well because you don't give it away with your face, right?
yeah.
And that's a actual gift, because you can hold things in, but it's also maybe a curse because you do hold things in, and maybe that adds a little extra stress in your life. But as you get older, you'll figure out how to manage all of that. But I would say if I had to pick a person, if I had to pick one person in your life that could tell a little bit about what you're thinking, I would say probably your mom, because she knows you well. She knows you since you were born, and she probably knows how to read your expressions or see your actions and try to determine what you're thinking. But there's another reason why I think she knows what you're thinking, and that's because she asks questions. And I know this because I'm a mom, and I'm always asking questions like, if I want to know something about my son, like let's say right now, both my kids are adults. So it's a little different now because they're both living on their own, making their own money, making their own decisions. But when they were at home, when they were your age, I would ask them questions like, where were you last night? Or who were you with last night? Or why did you come home late? Or how are you going to clean up this mess? Or, I would always be asking questions. And that is how you access your thinking. And that's how you can tell from somebody else what they're thinking when they're responding to those questions. So to develop can be the trick is to develop the skill of being a good thinker. To develop that, you have to be a master question asker. Okay, so let me restate that. So in order to be a good thinker, you got to be a good question asker. So that's the core of this, okay? Asking questions. When you ask yourself a question, that triggers thoughts. So that's how you access the thinking part of your brain, is asking yourself questions, asking questions, on the outside of yourself as well. So questions, that's a big deal with thinking. So even starting a conversation, like when you see a friend, you're at the grocery store, you see a friend, you say, hey, how's it going? Because you automatically start the conversation with a question. And that triggers a thought, and that triggers an answer. So to be a better thinker, we need to make it a habit of asking questions. Okay. And what are the big 6 questions? You remember those, like the main 6 questions that we can ask?
Oh, is it who, what, when, where, how, why?
Yep, you got it. Those are the big 6 questions: who, what, where, when, why, and how. And let's go ahead, and you can turn your page over on the back side here, since we kind of ran out of space on that one. Let's write those down. So let's just put questions here. This is the backside. And we have the big six, which is who, what, where, when, why, and how. And we just put a big question mark here next to that. Those are the big six. But there are also other questions we can ask to get more details. And that would be questions like what happened? And this is like in addition to this. So obviously you'd need one of these to start your question. But we can ask like what happened before, I'm putting this down a little bit, before, after, outside, what's happening outside, and then what's invisible. And I want you to keep these in mind as you're looking at these pictures that we're going to write about, okay? So these are the main questions that you're going to ask as you're filling out your keyword outline for this unit. Okay. All right, once you get that written down, we're done with that. I want you to get out page 81 that we just took out of your binder. 81 is the first set of pictures we're going to look at. Okay. And it's kind of nice that they, set it up for you to actually use this as your outline. So feel free to either write on this, I'm okay with that. Or if you want to use a lined piece of paper, it's totally up to you. I'm just going to use this one so we can look at it at the same time here. So as we look at these pictures, let's just kind of brainstorm for a second here. Looking at the first picture, what is the first thought that you have that comes to mind when you look at that picture? What do you think is happening in that picture?
The guy found a huge trash bag.
Okay. What do you think he's thinking, looking at his expression?
How did that get there?
Good. How did that get there? Yes. Or yeah, like, uh-oh. What am I going to do with this thing? All right. Yeah. And it's interesting because there's no background. You don't have any reference. Is it day? Is it night? Is he at home? Is he at school? Is he at a football game? You have no reference here. The next picture, you have a little reference because there's something in the background here which looks like a closet. So looking at the second picture, what do you think now? Do you have any change of thought, or what do you think is happening here?
I think he's either trying to hide it or he just wants it out of the way.
Okay. Yeah. I wonder, it could be it's in his closet possibly, because if you look closely at those shirts, they look kind of like the shirt he has on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it's his bedroom. I don't know. Okay. And then the last picture, how would you, what would you say about that one?
He's relieved because it was mostly able to fit in the closet.
Right. Not 100%, but mostly. And I don't know if he walks away from that, if it'll burst open and pop out again, because he kind of looks like he's propped up against it, like he's holding it shut.
Actually, I don't think that should be possible because it's going out on both sides. I don't know where the hinges are.
Exactly. It doesn't quite make sense. I agree. So it's Definitely not closing. So maybe it's not a real closet. I mean, there's that thought too. So who knows? But okay, so what we're going to do is actually fill out this. I'm going to help you kind of start filling out this chart here on how to ask those questions, and you can keep those questions handy next to you there as we fill it out. So the event description is that this is the event description, this whole outline. But remember, we put topic and then we put central fact in your notes. And so the central fact is what's in the picture, what you see visually. And I think you said, what did you say his expression was? Looking at his face. Where did that come from? Or something like that.
I said, how did that get there?
How did that get there? So let's just put that in quotes here. How get there. And we're just, this is an outline, so we're just going to keep it really simple. So how did that get there? That's his first thought. Like, what in the world? Oops, I forgot a question mark here. All right, so now we're going to start asking those questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how. So he's already asking, like, how did that get there? And now we're going to think about what could be, what do you think is inside that bag? What do you think is, and you can actually be really creative. You don't have, it doesn't even have to really make sense per se. I mean, it's, I think of like people who created Veggie Tales. I wonder how the guy just like suddenly in the middle of the night, he probably thought, man, what if vegetables could sing and talk and teach us a lesson? And then you have the cucumber saying, where is my hairbrush? And it's like, how in the world, so you can really this is where I have to be honest with you, Jasper. This is where I fall short. I'm not very creative when it comes to this type of stuff. I have to rely on people like you to come up with a great story. So in using your imagination, let's just, obviously the bag is taller than him. So either it's just a whole bunch of trash, or, I mean, I don't even know. So do you have any thoughts on what could be inside the bag?
It's a bag full of other trash bags.
A bag full of other trash bags. It's like, have you seen the movie Inception? The dream within a dream.
Yeah, I know that part.
It's like an Inception trash bag. It's got trash within the trash. Oh, that's funny. Okay, that's a possibility. I mean, what do you think is in the smaller trash bags inside the bigger trash bags? Did I freeze for a second?
Yeah.
Oh, it says my internet is unstable. It's me. Great. All right, so I just said, what do you think would be inside the smaller bags of trash?
Like leaves.
Okay.
And such, like yard waste.
Okay. So he's in his bedroom, but we'll ask that question in a minute here, but let's go back. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be logical, like I said. You can kind of, I don't know, maybe you need a little getting your creative juices going, but let's go back to, first of all, the bag. The bag is huge. Where do you think the bag itself might have come from? Where does that kind of a bag come from, do you think?
Do you mean like where he bought it from?
Yeah, or where he got it from. Maybe it came, maybe it's like a super stretch bag from Costco or something. I don't know. Just trying to think of looking at the actual picture. We can call it, just put super stretch and then maybe Costco. We'll start with that. So the bag came from Costco, but he probably filled it with something and you're thinking do you want to go with that it's got smaller trash bags within the bigger trash bag?
Yeah.
Okay. So we can say smaller bags inside. And you're saying you want to go with the leaves inside the smaller bags?
Yes.
Okay, so then if you're going with leaves, where did he get the leaves, do you think?
He went searching around in a forest.
Okay. Okay, let's put forest. And he went searching for leaves?
Yeah.
All right, let's put search here. Can you think of what is, so notice I'm asking myself questions as okay, we put that down now you're going to build on that thought. So why was he searching for leaves, do you think?
He wanted to get a new couch, but couldn't afford one. So he was going to make one.
So he was going to make one out of bags of leaves?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now we're getting somewhere, Jasper. This is good. Okay, I'm going to put needed couch. I'm going to put, I was going to put the $sign and then circle and cross out like no money. That's a $sign, by the way. You needed a couch, you didn't have money. Anything else we need to put on that line?
Like made.
Yes, made. Good. And remember, when you go to write this, you don't have to use every word you put in your outline. I just want to reiterate that because this is more like a plan, obviously, because if you just sit down with a blank sheet of paper and you just put your pencil down, you start writing, that's hard to do. But here you've done all the thinking and you've jotted down all these keywords. So basically what I'm saying, if you want to add or take away or change, or, this is just a guide. So just to keep that in mind. Okay. So we're still just looking at this top picture. We haven't looked ahead yet at all. So we got one more thing we need to stick in here. So what could we say about that next? He needed a couch. He didn't have any money, so he's going to make one. So what happened next?
It started on its own, and that's why he's surprised.
Say that one more time.
It started moving on its own, and that's why he's surprised.
Okay. Okay. What words do you want to put for number 5 then?
Like moving, own, and shocked.
Okay. Should we put alive ?
Yeah.
Is it alive? Okay, good. The clincher repeats or reflects 2 to 3 keywords, so we don't need to write any words there. Just keep that in mind when you get to the writing part of this. Let's see what time we got. Oh, darn, it's 9:30. I just heard your clock too. I should have picked up on that. Okay, so here's what you're going to do. You are going to keep in mind these questions that we just went over on your notes as you go through each one of the pictures for this outline, okay? And you're just going to keep asking yourself questions, and each time you put something down in your outline, you're going to build on that by asking one of these questions. Now, keep in mind, you can use these on the side, and as you go through these pictures, you could think about, you know, anything that's invisible in the room. Maybe there's, like you're thinking, maybe there's something alive, or it itself came alive. And then what happened, you know, before this moment where he's wanting to hide it? Did something happen before that? And what happened after that? So just keep asking yourself those questions, build your outline, and then you're going to write your version of these pictures. Okay. And just so you know, there's another page that we pulled out of your binder. I know I'm going a little bit long. Sorry about that. This one here with the pirate ships, or the pirate ship. And there's like, I'm going to give you and Melina a choice. I know we started this one in class about the trash bag, and if you're liking it and you want to keep going with that, you can go with that. If you want to use this one instead, that's okay too. So I just want to, those are your two choices this week for homework. And you're going to just create this, okay? And make up your story. Now, don't forget, the most important thing is to follow your checklist. And so you did take that out. So this is still in play as you're writing from your outline. You must use your checklist. And I noticed that both you and Melina did attach this to your homework. So good job, because I want to see the check marks from now on there. And then use the little trick with checking for banned words. I ran out of time today, and we'll go through this more next week, but there's 2 more banned words here, nice and big. So just watch for those, especially big, because you're going to be talking about that trash bag if you write that one. So we'll make a list of that, but for now you can go to Google or use a thesaurus. I say Google, but you can go to thesaurus.com too. That's a good place to find synonyms. Okay, so any questions about your homework?
No, I think I got it.
Okay, cool.
Oh,
so you're,
it was just the first paragraph, right?
I was gonna have you do the whole thing, but is that might be too much? Does it take you? It's hard to tell, and I hate to put you on the spot. It's hard to tell how much I'm assigning. If it's too, does it take you more than an hour to finish an outline and actually write the whole story, you think? Take more than
I don't think it'll take as long with this one, because I don't have to like scan through a page and then do like transfer it. So I think I can do this one faster.
Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking. So let's see, let's try doing the whole thing. And then if you get like to where you need more time, just message me on Google Classroom, because I don't want it to be so stressful. You know, I mean, this is more of a fun assignment. So I'm hoping you could finish the outline and actually write all 3 paragraphs for next class. So let's see how it goes. And if you, or Melina, that's true for you too. If it's like taking you way longer than you thought, just communicate that to me, okay? I'm okay with that. All right. So if you don't have any other questions, that's it for today.
All right.
So have fun with it. Something different. All right, Jasper. Have a good rest of the week. I'll see you next week.
All right. You too.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.